Welcome to Critical Health News' weekly video Bright Bite with pharmacist Ben Fuchs.
Greetings, Ben Fuchs here. We're going to talk about probiotics today. Get a lot of letters about probiotics, and there's a lot of confusion about probiotics. Basically, one of the hallmark ideas, what I like to call the bright side philosophy, the things that we talk about on in this series of videos, is that the gut controls everything. It's all about the digestive system when it comes to overall health. The gut controls, obviously, digestion. And when I say the gut, by the way, I mean the intestine, the small intestine and the large intestine. The small intestine and the large intestine obviously control how we extract energy from food and how we process our foods, but they also control the intestine, and the gut also controls the immune system. It also has a role to play in skin health, it has a role to play in the health of the central nervous system, the brain, and it also has an important role to play in cardiovascular health and our blood pressure and how our heart works. But when we talk about how important the intestine is, what we have to understand is that the health of the intestine is itself dependent on bacteria that live there. In fact, there are more bacteria in our body, more bacterial cells in our body than there are human cells, which is kind of an interesting fact that our health is controlled, or the major control point of our health has nothing to do with us. It has to do with these bacteria. So if we're going to be healthy, we got to understand how to keep these bacteria healthy, the major, or at least a major control point of our digestive health and the health of our bodies. The way it's supposed to work is when a baby is born and comes out of the birth canal, that baby is coated with bacteria. That bacterial coating then enters into the baby's nostrils and into the baby's mouth, and those bacteria migrate down into the intestine, and then they implant in the intestine. And then, the way it's supposed to work is breast milk, nutrients in breast milk, substances like sugars and fats, are supposed to feed those bacteria, and then those bacteria can proliferate. So they implant initially in the intestine from the coating that they get through their journey through the birth canal, and then they're sustained, and then they proliferate from nutrients that are in the breast milk. Unfortunately, many babies are born cesarean section, so they're not coming out through the birth canal, and they're missing that bacterial coating. Secondly, many women aren't even breastfeeding, so the bacteria that are there don't get nourished and don't get sustained. On top of that, many mothers aren't nutritionally competent themselves, so even if they are getting breastfed, they're not getting the nutrients they need, and even if they are passing through the birth canal, they're not getting the appropriate bacteria because the mother isn't healthy. You throw on top of all of that the standard American diet, and by the time the kid is a year old or even less, he's already going to be dealing with what's called dis-biosis, meaning messed up gut bacteria. Then you toss in antibiotics, and you toss in nursery water or tap water, which contains fluoride and chlorine. And so by the time the kid isn't even a year or two old, he's dealing with sometimes severe dysbiosis, which can show up as colic, it can show up as asthma, it can show up as eczema, it can show up as ear infections, it can show up as mucousy and snotty, runny nose. There's a lot of ways that this dysbiosis can show up, and really, the problem is not where you think it is. It's not in the nose, and it's not in the skin, and it's not in the foods that the baby's eating. It's in, although all of these may have a role to play, it's in the initial implantation or lack thereof, and in the initial sustenance of those bacteria, or the lack thereof, which occurs very early in the kid's life process. So how does this all show up in terms of health as we get older? Well, we always backtrack to the triangle of disease, and the triangle of disease is 3 points: the digestive system, the blood sugar system, and the adrenal system. Point number one, the digestive system, well, that's obvious. If you don't have gut bacteria, you're not going to have a healthy intestine, you're not going to be able to digest your food correctly. Also, interestingly, bacteria actually communicate with the cells of our intestine. There's what's called crosstalk between bacteria and our intestine. And the bacteria are telling our intestine how to process the foods. So not only are the bacteria themselves digesting food or helping our bodies digest food, but they're actually helping our very own cells digest our food. Once that system goes awry, we no longer can extract energy correctly from foods, then the blood sugar system, which is our energy system, becomes affected. And there's a very important connection between dysbiosis, messed up gut bacteria, and all of the signs of diabetes, including hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, or dysglycemia, messed up blood sugar. Obesity, there's a very important relationship between obesity and weight gain, and the so-called microbiome, which is the technical name for this universe of bacteria that live in the gut. So dysbiosis and a messed up microbiome can affect weight issues, it can cause obesity issues, it can cause low blood sugar issues, it can cause heart health issues, which are also linked to diabetes, cardiovascular issues like hypertension and blood clotting, and even the health of the heart itself can be affected by the microbiome. Once energy is not extracted correctly, we run into blood sugar problems. Then you go to the third point of our triangle of disease, which is the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are your stress glands. They're supposed to handle blood sugar fluctuations. So when blood sugar drops or when blood sugar goes too high, the adrenal glands will kick in with emergency and stress hormones to help the blood sugar become stabilized. Then you run into adrenal problems. The adrenal glands are linked to the thyroid. So once the adrenal gland gets thrown off, the thyroid gets thrown off, you can run into problems with hypo or low thyroid functioning, hypothyroidism, which we know is an epidemic. Also, the bacteria themselves are involved in activating thyroid hormone. So when you have dysbiosis, you're not activating thyroid hormone. And then here's where it really gets troublesome. The thyroid regulates the digestive system, and now you end up with digestive problems leading to more blood sugar problems, leading to more adrenal and thyroid problems, which lead to more digestive problems, and you get this vicious downward spiral of health. And it all starts in the microbiome, and it starts very early in age. So what do you do? Well, first of all, let me tell you a couple things. Number one, the two most susceptible demographic groups when it comes to dysbiosis and messed up gut bacteria are the very young and the very old. The very young because they're depending on nutrients and energy to grow. The very old because they're already weak and fragile. Everybody's going to be susceptible to these problems, but it's especially going to be problematic for the very young and for the very old. Another interesting thing about probiotics, gut bacteria, is they help us detoxify things like heavy metals and food toxins. And there's a relationship between how the body processes fats and how the body clears out hormones and good bacteria. So once you have issues with the microbiome and dysbiosis, you're not going to be able to clear out toxins like heavy metals as effectively. You're not going to be able to clear out excess estrogen or process or used up toxic estrogen as effectively. And that, by the way, includes xenoestrogens, what they call foreign estrogens, things like plastics and birth control pills. All of these are processed by the good bacteria. And let's see what else. Oh, blood fats. You're not going to be able to process fats as effectively. There's a relationship between bile and good bacteria. So you're not going to be able to process, number one, your fatty nutrients and essential fatty acids, and you're not going to be able to clear out fats from the blood as effectively. So the blood fats can become elevated as well. That can also cause problems with the heart. Another interesting thing is the relationship between yeast and bacteria. It turns out that yeast, and most people have heard of candida yeast, it turns out that yeast, candida yeast and other yeast live in balance with bacteria. So when our friendly bacteria that live in the intestine get thrown off from all the reasons we talked about, antibiotics and eating the wrong kinds of foods, etc., it turns out that yeast can overgrow. And one of the best ways to counteract candida is to make sure that you're getting on a good probiotic supplement, eating fermented foods, and then eating prebiotics, make sure you're getting prebiotic fibers that help sustain and provide a good environment for the intestine. Eating sugar can feed the wrong kinds of bacteria, and a lot of folks, after they eat really sweet foods, especially fructose, especially fruit sugar, will notice gas and bloating. And that's a sure sign that you got the wrong kind of bacteria proliferating in your intestine. So if you find that you're eating especially dried fruits or even regular fruits or any kind of sugary foods, and you notice gas or bloating or any bowel movement problems, that's a sign that you're dealing with dysbiosis. You see there's all kinds of disasters that await us if we once we start going down this road, this dysbiosis road. So what do you do? Well, first of all, the most important thing you could do is make sure you're keeping your intestines healthy. And one of the best ways to do that is to eat fermented foods for a couple of reasons. Number one, fermented foods, things like miso and tempeh and cheese, soft cheese like Gouda, yogurt if it has probiotics and live bacteria and live cultures in it. Not all yogurt has live bacteria in it, so you got to make sure that you're getting yogurt that has live cultures on it. You can read the label. Fermented beets, sauerkraut. You can make your own fermented foods by adding bacterial starters to vegetables and just letting the vegetables sit. Super easy to make. Fermented foods play a couple of roles in keeping the intestine healthy. Number one, they provide you with a source of bacteria. Number two, they also provide you with fiber. We'll talk about fiber here in a second, but fiber is also plays an important role in keeping the intestinal environment healthy for bacteria. And then fermented foods also have their nutrients released. The action of bacteria on the foods, on the cabbage if you're eating sauerkraut, or on the dairy if you're eating yogurt, or on the cheese. The action of bacteria helps release the nutrients, making them more accessible. So you got three ways fermented foods can help restore the health of the gut: through providing you with bacteria, providing you with fiber, and releasing nutrients that are locked up in specific foods. The second thing you do is get on a good probiotic supplement. That's super easy to do. I love the BioLumin Nightly Essence. If you're choosing, if you want to choose a good probiotic supplement, look for multiple strains of bacteria. There's hundreds of different strains of bacteria. A good probiotic supplement will have maybe 10 or 12 different strains, sometimes even 14 or 15 strains of bacteria. You don't want to go for a probiotic supplement that just has one or two strains of bacteria. You also might have to juggle your probiotics periodically. Sometimes switching around your probiotics makes a difference. Sometimes some people will get benefits from one brand of probiotic, and they won't get the same benefits from another brand. So you may need to juggle around your probiotic, the choice of your probiotic formula, until you find the brand that works for you. Another thing you can look for in a good probiotic supplement is digestive enzymes. That's one of the reasons why I like the BioLumin Nightly Essence, or now we're calling it the Ultimate Nightly Essence for longevity, is it contains digestive enzymes. These are digestive enzymes that help the body process proteins. You can also, the third thing that you could do to keep to help restore the integrity of the gut and to make the environment healthy for good bacteria to live in, or for probiotics to live in, is to eat what are called prebiotics. And the most important of the prebiotics is fiber. Fiber acts to help acts as a food source for the good bacteria. It helps to nourish the good bacteria. Additionally, when you eat fiber, you also help clean out excess toxins, and that supports the health of the intestine. And then thirdly, and this is kind of interesting, when bacteria munch down on fiber, they release a specific compound called butyric acid, which actually helps to feed and sustain the cells of the intestine. So fiber plays multiple roles in helping provide a good environment for bacteria to live in. So between prebiotics, fiber, taking a good probiotic supplement, and making sure you're eating fermented food, you can help provide an environment, and also an environment for bacteria to live in, and also provide your body with the bacteria that they need. A couple other things that you might want to consider is staying away from antibiotics as best as you can, only taking antibiotics when necessary. If you are taking antibiotics, and sometimes you do need to take antibiotics, make sure you get on a good probiotic supplement and eat your fiber, your prebiotics, and also eat your fermented food after. But you don't want to take probiotic supplements or try to restore the probiotic population in your gut too close to your antibiotic, because your antibiotic will kill off the probiotics. So wait a few hours, and then when you're done with your course of therapy, make sure you really pound the probiotics. Also, stay away from tap water, which contains chlorine and fluoride, and antibiotics for that matter, all of which can conspire to kill off good bacteria. This is especially true for little kids. And elderly folks, for that matter. Drink distilled water, pure water, reverse osmosis water if you can. And also just a general good nutritional supplement program always helps. Make sure you get on the Healthy Start Pack, and make sure you're using a good nutritional supplement program, getting your mighty 90 essential nutrients and keeping your body healthy. Okay, that's our chat on probiotics. Hope that helps people, especially if you're dealing with irritable bowel syndrome or ulcerative colitis. That's really where you notice the benefits of probiotics, is if you're dealing with a digestive health issue. One last interesting tidbit. Do you know food cravings may be related not to your desire for chocolate and chips and sweets, but to your bacteria's desire for chocolate and sweets and chips? It turns out that bacteria will actually produce chemicals that affect our taste buds and our drives for specific foods, not because we want them, but because they want them. So you may think that chocolate looks really delicious, but it may actually be your bacteria that's telling you that. That's a kind of an interesting little point about those little friendly little critters that live in our intestine. Thanks for listening.